Welcome to the Old Man's Corner. Pull up a chair and a cup of coffee and come on in. Good morning, my friends. Today I'd like to talk a little bit on the things that give us strength and inspire us and help us throughout each and every day. Waking up every morning with a prayer is usually the best thing to do because it gives you a sense of peace throughout the remainder of the day. I enjoy that cup of coffee in the morning. That helps me a lot. And it gives me time to contemplate on the things I'm going to do for the day. You know, the chores I need to get done, or things like making videos or whatever I feel like I need to accomplish that day. For years, I did yard work. I always had a big yard to get out and work in, and gardening. I enjoyed, just getting out and mowing the grass because I enjoyed the smell of that fresh cut grass. There's nothing like it. And then just being out in the sun and the air, and that tends to strengthen your spirit altogether. Same thing with gardening. Once I got the seeds and stuff and the plants in, taking care of those each day, it was not a chore. It was an honor, to get out and water and make sure all the weeds were out and nothing was getting choked out. Plus, you got the excitement of seeing things bear fruit, and there's nothing like that. I mean, it's watching life grow, something that you help to grow. And then, of course, when you harvest whatever you've planted, then the ability, usually in my case, I planted so many things that there's more than I was actually going to ever use. But what I did use, I could also, blanch and then put it in bags and freeze it, and sometimes I just use it right there. A lot of times I just ate the tomatoes. I just ate them right there in the garden, wipe them off, eat them. But I could also bag those up and give them to other people. I didn't really ever sell them because I didn't feel like selling was something. I got it basically free, just my time and labor. And so I liked giving those things out. And sometimes other people have such a bountiful harvest that I could set some, like the tomatoes and corn and stuff, out on a table in front of the house, and still nobody would pick them up because everybody else had the same type of abundance, so that nobody needed them. Of course, I lived at the country most of that time, and there weren't that many people driving by. But that was always fun. My mom, she raised flowers. I never got into flowers because I didn't understand exactly what they needed to take care of those flowers. Roses, you can understand roses, and she was a big fan of roses, and she liked daffodils and the violets. She liked them, but they're harder to raise because they take a lot of preparation and care. But I also, enjoyed a lot of photography, nature photography. I enjoyed nature photography. I would get out and wander around in the back roads of the country, especially in the county and the state there, and even down in here into Oklahoma. You can find some amazing things. I found abandoned caves in there that take pictures of. You can find. There's nothing more interesting than to see a windmill standing out in the middle of a prairie, and they call them the sentinels of the plains. And you take a photo of that, and it's amazing. And you see so many of them, especially around where I was from. Some of them kind of dilapidated. Some of them were still in working order. About every abandoned old house usually had a windmill there, or some type of old well there. So those were interesting. And then old houses, especially. There were wood old houses, and there were stone old houses that you could take pictures of. The prairie, when I lived out on the prairie, there wasn't a whole lot of trees most of the time, so a lot of them built out of sod and stone. And you could still find a few once in a while, but not as many as you might think. I like taking pictures, again, of odd and unusual type things. Like I spoke of in one of the earlier videos, I wandered into the woods and you'd find trees that had grown up and encompassed different things, like that garden gate where the hinge stuck out and it looked like the tree had a tongue. And then you can see other things that are embedded inside bicycles, old cars that are embedded in a tree, those type of things. They were interesting. But also, there was other things in the nature that, there were some beautiful trees out there, especially this time of year in the fall. All the dappled colors, those are beautiful. Fall colors are some of the best, and when you're out on back roads and stuff, you see a variety mixed in, and you can. Those are beautiful. Just photographing them down the road, extended down through there. Same thing with railroad tracks; they're always lined with trees, and those were beautiful. I'd like to do, on nature walks, they usually have trees and stuff down there too. And of course on the nature walks, like the nature trails in Ark City, you go there, and also on that small Timber Creek Nature Walk there in Winfield. Timber Creek Nature Walk in Winfield was interesting to me because it was basically where I grew up. It wasn't a nature walk then, it was our old swimming hole and stuff back in there, where we used to come walk over down Andrews Street and come over the dike and go down there what used to be called One-Armed Pete's. And right there behind his house was our swimming hole. And that in itself was interesting because the old house, after old Pete had passed away, that old house sat there for a while, and as it did, bees and stuff took it over. And one of the guys in our neighborhood, who's I don't think was really all that bright sometimes, he would get in there and built a fire on the floor in there. He was thinking he was camping out, but he ended up basically burning the building down. But when you tore open the walls, there was these great big old honeycombs in there, so we got some of the honey out of it, and it was pretty nice. It was terrible, though, that he burned down Pete's whole house, but Pete wasn't there to enjoy it, but still, yet, it was his house. When we had an old rope swing down at Pete's, so people could, swing out in there and drop in the water. There's trees that hung over the water out on the other side. A bunch of them would go over there and jump off that tree into the water. And I had one friend, he jumped off in there and kind of bonked his head on the bottom of the creek, and that wasn't too thrilling. And the embankment going down too was, once people started swimming, it got kind of slippery there because it was basically just all mud. But it was a good place, and we could go over there, sometimes in the evenings, and we'd camp out and have little parties, as we got teenagers and stuff. Of course, you could go over there and have your little beer parties, drinking parties. That was a place to go, and it was outside the city. It was on the other side of the dike. Well, we considered it outside the city, but I guess the city police patrolled it. So they go over there, and there's also a little washed out, used to be an old bridge. You go down there and you can do some, find crawdads and stuff to catch, and that was fun at times too. So that was one of the things that I enjoyed doing a lot. Also, some of the things that I did, the photos were, I've got tons of photos that I took, and I'm going to post some on here because people have asked me to do that. Also, one of the things that helped me get along is for a long period of time there, I was writing poetry. A lot of people don't understand poetry or don't like poetry, but I did basically free verse. I understood, the common poet, the iambic pentameter, it has a certain amount of beats to it, and then the haikus have a certain amount of levels and beats to them. And I wasn't that much on writing those. I just wrote, free verse. And I wrote what I felt. And sometimes what I was feeling was something that I hadn't ever really experienced myself, but it just came to me. And I think often poets are that way. It's just something when you get it written down, you say, that's not me. That's the spirit coming through me, the influence coming through me that has me to write these things. And I enjoyed those. And I did one in I recited one in the last video I did. I'm going to do a few more, but I'm not the greatest orator, so you bear with me. And then I just add some photos in there that I've got offline, and put the titles of the poems in there. So you can bear with me on those. I'm going to try to add maybe one each to my videos if I can. Another thing I enjoyed doing was we went swimming a lot, and like I said, Pete's Bend is one of the places that we went, and we had Great Bend, which is where we'll go out the tracks, or Big Bend is what we call it. We went out the tracks about 1.5 miles out of town, and there was another place that they got backed up in the woods. There you could go, and it is part of the Timber Creek as well. We could go back in there and swim and camp back in there. Now I think it's state property. That may have been even back then, but nobody ever got bothered us about doing that. I did hunting. That always helped me because I was out in nature. I didn't do I didn't do any big game hunting. I don't like the field dress and do all that stuff, the great big game. So I did a lot of, fowl hunting. I could do, prairie chickens and quail and things of that sort. And occasionally we do rabbits and squirrels. Those were mainly turkey, if you could get one. Turkey weren't as prominent around our areas. There were in some areas. But prairie chickens and quail were. I enjoyed going out with friends doing that, especially one of my friends, he had a hunting dog. They'd go out and flush things out, so it made it much easier than, because you go walking through some of them corn maze and maize fields, all of a sudden them things jump up, and you're startled, and by the time you get a shot off, man, they're gone. So if the dog goes out and flushes them up, you got a chance of getting one. I used to go also along the railroad tracks and pick up rocks, because the railroad, they bring rocks in to go around the edges and to build their mounds up so they put the tracks on them. For a long time, they brought in, volcanic rock, and you can go through there and you can pick up, different rocks and different shapes and sizes and colors and stuff like that. And sometimes they use the river rock. And river rock, it also has some very beautiful little stones in it. On the volcanic rock, I found used to go quartz hunting. You could find these quartz and crystals, had that been crunched up into the rock that they were pouring down there. And you can collect those and clean those up, and those are very nice looking. And I enjoyed collecting those for a while. And then for a while, something didn't improve my spirit, help me with my spirit. I had little collections of things. I did what I called the Smiling Jack Buddhas, which is the little fat Buddha with the belly that was always smiling. I had the ones that stood up and the other ones that sat down. I had one of those that was a cement one. He was a little squat, sat down Buddha. I painted him gold, and he sat in my bedroom as I was growing up for a long, long time. He was heavy, and so nobody moved him around that much. But then I did a bunch of smaller ones. Then I started collecting a lot of the miniature glass things, like the ships and that type of thing, and picked up some of those in Disneyland and things like that, places like that. And that was fun too. I did a ship collection there for a while. They're just things that inspired me and helped me to, do stuff that made me calm and gave me peace, at times. Running the back roads, just driving sometimes. My friend Dwayne and I used to go out. We'd go out and run back roads, and half time we didn't know where we were going or where we were going to end up. And sometimes, we'd end up in different states, and night coming on, and we didn't know exactly where we were at, and we find some of the little towns that forgotten little towns, you know. Those were interesting. You can go through those. And there's times that we'd be out driving around and we'd just find somewhere close to the river and we'd pull in there and we'd just park and maybe build a fire occasionally, but sometimes we'd just stay in the car and sleep for a little while and then take off again. So we did a lot of that type of stuff, and we'd go out and find different swimming holes and just different places to do things, and that kept the spirit strong, kept calm inside, calm. And also enjoyed just being around my friends. We used to walk the streets of Winfield, especially. They'd get out and just walk, especially at night, you know, because everything's closing down, and you get out there and walk around. We had Island Park down there, where everybody used to walk down to Island Park, and we sat down there, and occasionally they used to bring the local bands come down there, and they'd rehearse down there, and you'd just sit out there and listen to them. But then, as with anything, you know, the city got pretty particular because somebody was complaining of amplified music, even though there weren't that many houses even nowhere close to the park. So they had put a no amplified music in the park. So we had to stop that. They still had some acoustic music, and that still kind of irritated them, I think. And then finally they got to the point to where you couldn't go in after midnight, and then you couldn't be in there before 6 o'clock in the morning. And of course, got caught in there a few times after midnight, sitting back there on some of the benches in the little pavilions, and they'd come in and chase you out. So did that. We spent a lot of time as teenagers down there. That was a good gathering point where everybody could sit down and talk and meet and do the things that we did, you know. And it was just a good thing that helped us all to, and it kept us off of the streets per se. Well, at least we were in one spot down there, you know. A lot of my friends, and a few of my friends and I, we occasionally float down the Timber Creek or down to the Walnut. Some of them did inner tube floats. I didn't do that many inner tube floats because I didn't. Well, a little area with the rivers and stuff, it's like muddy rivers and stuff that you can't see the bottom. You can't see what's in there. Because I've been fishing some of them. We had a lot of needle gar around there, and those things, they can snatch hold of something and they don't let go. And so I didn't do a whole lot of that. But throughout life, I've done many things. I did some traveling. I've traveled to probably most of the states of the United States, and up a little bit in Canada and down into Mexico. That's about the far out of the states as I went. I enjoy most of the states and stuff. I have a basic fear of heights, so I'm not really a fan of the real mountainous states. They're beautiful, but to drive in them and stuff like that, not that big a fan of those type of things. Well, I just want to share some of this with you, and you put up a video, and if you had some things that you did that kept your spirits up and inspired you and stuff, kind of let us know. Tell us about it down here. Drop some things down in the comments, and let's share them with other people. And that things that inspire you, maybe they'll inspire me or other people as well. So this has just been a little one. I'm going to drop, I think, one more poem in here that I've done set up. But like I say, I'm not the greatest orator, so bear with me. So just want to tell you I love you and I appreciate you, and thanks for watching my videos. So just like and share and comment. Warriors of the Just, arrayed in regimental elegance, tassels of gold braid tossed to and fro, a dashing silhouette of vigor and vim, were but all esteemed valiance captured in its eternal youth. Who trumpets the call to arms, the battlements and war-torn fields desolate of meaning? Prestige dangles from the chest of dead as the battered comrades return to reality. Let us arm ourselves with a free spirit, warriors of the just. Walk upright, head held high, for I know what I am and who I am. Decorate me free.